everyone. This is the Societal Lens. Uh, I am Charlie. I am here with Sam, Ruby, Elise, and Haley. And today we will be talking about Disney, Pixar, and classist themes, along with maybe a little bit of capitalism sprinkled in, for the fans.
We love capitalism.
No, we don't. We all went off and did research on separate movies. I think Aladdin and Ratatouille are in the mix somewhere. I did Zootopia, so that's what I'll be talking about. Uh, I think when you think about the themes in Zootopia, the class divide and the racism is usually the sort of key thing that people will remember. Actually, right before recording this, I spent the last 2 hours in school rewatching Zootopia. So as I said, what people usually remember is the divide between the predators and the prey. And while I was looking for multiple opinions on this and just what people have sort of analyzed to get an overview, uh, I noticed a particular article, I don't remember which one, talking about how he is the president, right?
Which one?
The
mayor.
The prime
He's the
minister,
mayor,
he's the
right?
mayor. The article mentioned that you can tell that the predators have sort of the more power in all sorts of situations because the mayor is the lion. And one thing that stood out to me was that it said that the deer, buffalo, police, Judy's
Chief
boss,
Bogo.
Chief Bogo, that's his name. Okay.
I have a good memory when it comes to films. Okay.
I just watched the movie and I don't remember his name. Right, Chief Bogo, they called him a predator, and that, struck out to me because Chief Bogo is very clearly not a predator, and that's when sort of the realization struck, oh my god, animals can be both prey and predator, which kind of mixes up what the movie is kind of trying to show. And even then, there's plenty of animals that aren't predators that seem to have their own power. Which brings me sort of to my big point, if that is, which is that there's whether on purpose or by accident, there is a representation of intersectionality. I hope I'm using that correctly. Because it's not just predators and prey, it's big and small, and certain animal groups that feel as though they are being treated by lesser than, such as Judy actually, ends up treating other animals with the completely different sort of expectations. While I was watching, I am going to admit I didn't have enough time to watch it all the way to the end, but I do still remember it pretty clearly the entire movie. Some of the stuff that stuck out to me with the way that the different species treat each other was the fox repellent that is given to Judy Hopps. The way that it is specifically targeted towards foxes as well. It's not just a spray to protect yourself. It's specifically anti-fox repellent. So that kind of stuck out. What Judy says about being called cute, about how it's okay if other rabbits call her cute, and I saw some people comparing. Right, I saw some people comparing it to the N-word, but I've also seen people compare it to how women in the workplace get called pretty, and although it's meant to be a compliment, it oftentimes comes off as more sort of demeaning, almost. So, I'm kind of just sort of saying this to show that even though what most people sort of know about Zootopia is the racism metaphor, it actually goes into a lot more nuance about all kinds of different pressures and prejudices, and how even someone that we see as prey, like Judy Hopps, it can can be prejudiced towards other characters. So yeah, with the actual class difference between the characters, something really interesting is that the different districts. I don't remember if that city for the rodents counted as a district. I don't think it did. I think it was just like an area in the main city. Because the actual districts were things like ice, fire, I'm
The
just thinking.
rainforest.
The jungle. Uh, so it's like having all kinds of different societies. Thank you, Ruby. It's called Little Rodentia.
Rodents?
Yeah, they're rodents, Sam. Little animals, mice, hamsters, the likes.
Is
Ever
that,
heard of them?
wait, is that one of the areas then? Including the rainforest and the...
We just said it's more of like an area within the main city rather
Oh,
than
so
a
that's the main
district in
city.
itself. It's within.
It's a gated community.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So they have their own little communities, and they can feel like they can sort of be more empowered within their own communities. But the second they step outside, you see like all kinds of different animals together, and Judy's family sort of tries to pressure her into staying within that community for her by telling her to stay a carrot farmer. And so there's a lot of playing into the idea that your sort of place in society is predetermined based on in this case, what animal you are and where you're from. And that sort of came off as one of the strongest themes, I think. Other than that, I do think that a valid criticism of this is the fact that they're using animals, because I think, personally at least, that the story is actually handled quite well, and I've seen many people talk about how they even cried at it, or that they very much enjoyed watching it with their friends. And I think what sort of maybe goes against that when you think about it is the fact that they're animals. If this would have been about a bunch of species trying to get along, just like that, it would have been less food for thought, maybe, because we have the context that predators ate prey, and the beginning of the movie starts off instantly by showing that there were either the predators, the dangerous predators, and the meat prey. And obviously, both of those stereotypes are damaging to both of those groups. But when it's with the animal kingdom, which is an existing thing, it becomes a bit muddled when you try and mix that with modern issues to do with people, because people aren't different kind of animals that used to eat each other.
Questions to ask you after you finish.
Yeah, of course. It's just it's difficult to talk about Zootopia and not talk about this.
Yeah.
Because this is what stuck out to people the most. I think it would be silly
The
to
really
just
subtle
gloss over it.
metaphors.
Really subtle metaphors. There were definitely things that were really on the nose, but as I said, I think the usage of animals might be a bit strange to some people, but overall the story isn't bad, especially for the audience, which is children. What were the questions you wanted to ask?
So, first of all, I wanted to talk about. So, Judy Hopps obviously is a rabbit, and in the film, it's said that she has a lot of siblings, which obviously is a joke, and it's to do with.
They are good at multiplying.
So it's to do with like the fact that rabbits copulate a lot.
That's sex.
Exactly.
They nasty.
And quite for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I think we were trying to avoid that.
I was trying to avoid
Oh, wow,
that.
you I thought you were trying to point us towards it. Sorry.
No, I was trying to point this away from the
Language.
towards sex.
It's like the theatre.
Um.
He's behind you, he's copulating.
So basically, yeah, it is a joke, and it's to do with that. But there is a way that we can read it as the rabbits as being poor, because they're farmers and they grow up in kind of rural land as opposed to the big zootropolis, you know. And I got up a statistic which is what I was doing earlier. Yeah. And this is based off of the US, which is close to what Zootopia is based off of. It's based off the US. In 2021, by household income, women who earn or women in families which earn under $10,000 a year, there is 62.75 births per 1,000 women. Compare that to someone who would earn average income in the US, which is around, I think, around 50,000. That is nearly 10 births lower at 53.04 births per 1,000 women. So there's a clear difference in those who earn less. They usually have more children than those who earn more. And it's also clear to see that the rabbits have a lot of children, which I know is because of the whole joke that rabbits copulate a lot.
I didn't even know that.
Just use the joke they used in the movie that they are good at multiplying.
They're good at multiplying. But if we view it through the class lens, there is that way that we can read it. I guess my question was, would you think that, for the most part, not because there are exceptions, but smaller animals are seen as lower class, whereas the larger ones are upper class?
See, this was the interesting bit where the sort of predators and prey and big and small come in, because I've mentioned this before. I don't know how briefly or if it'll have to be cut because of these guys.
Sorry.
But there are certain animals that are both predator and prey, or prey animals that are large. So it's kind of difficult to tell. And there's the rat village thing. I forgot.
The Silver Adventure, that is a gated community, which is one of the exceptions I was talking about.
Yeah.
They're
The
obviously-
Mr. Big, for example. Mr.
they're
Big is
very well off. Yeah.
very well off. But in general, especially in Judy's world, the character we follow, she is surrounded by animals larger than her. So it felt more that larger animals seemed to be more successful.
Yeah.
However, within their own communities, there did seem to be multiple thriving characters.
With the example of Nick,
he's not thriving. He's not going
not
anywhere.
thriving. He was. I think it's in the movie. It's clear that he wasn't brought up in kind of an affluent area. So he grew up and he wasn't so well off when he was younger, and I guess there's kind of something in that he was almost forced into a life of crime in order to make money in order to survive.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it was just that. I think he may have been scared. You know that flashback of him when he wants to draw what is essentially a scout?
Yeah, the scouts group.
Yeah, and they're incredibly awful to him, especially because we don't see anything of young Nick that would show him being anything other than sweet.
Yeah.
And he almost reminds us of Judy. And it's almost like if Judy had been treated harsher, I guess, because they both have had that traumatic moment. Nick had the moment with the scouts, and Judy had that moment with the other fox.
Gideon Gray.
Yeah. Judy. Right, Judy had the bad moment. You remember all the names? I forget them. Judy had the bad moment with Gideon, and Nick had the bad moment with the herbivores? The prey.
The prey,
Yeah.
who also
and-
just so happened to be herbivores.
Yeah. Both those situations were very traumatic for both of them. But I would argue that Judy, although discouraged from her goals, did receive more protection for being prey. And Nick was continued to be assumed dangerous and therefore received less support. So yeah, that's a sort of an observation I made.
Yeah. So it's kind of Nick's been forced into that because of the stereotypes that were kind of associated with foxes, which then led to him having the negative experience with the Scouts troop.
Yeah.
Right. So that links on to something I'm going to talk about later with Ratatouille. My app has just turned off. With Ratatouille. What I want to talk about, while Zootropia...
Zootropia.
Please start.
My favourite trope.
Zootopia is explicitly about prejudice. It's been written and it's been created to be a metaphor for prejudice. But Ratatouille, on the other hand, hasn't been created to be about class mobility. It's kind of turned out that way because of its premise, which is rats, I guess. And I will go into more depth in that. So Ratatouille is, the classic things we think about it. It's inspiration, art, what's the word? Nostalgia. But if we look at it through a certain lens, it is about class mobility within a capitalist system. Obviously, we've got very different extremes. So those who have to essentially dumpster dive for their food to survive, and those are the rats on the one end of the spectrum, and then those who can afford to dine at like haute cuisine restaurants at the other. So it's Ratatouille is about an artist, Remy, from the former end of the spectrum who attempts to get to the latter. And if we read the rats as being how the rich see the poor, we can begin to see a whole new layer to the film. So one conflict that Remy faces is essentially the less money that you have, the less time that you have to develop your craft. And survival, as we can see in the film, comes above all else for the rats. But when Remy wants to progress, he has to experiment with more expensive stuff. And at the start of the film, we see him using human rubbish to make a dish, but he realizes that to really make the dish, he uses those words, he has to steal from a human, he has to steal some saffron, and eventually he gets punished for this by losing his clan. And I'll talk about this whole progression of stealing to punishment throughout the film later. After this whole event, Remy discovers that he's actually been living under Paris, which at the time of the release of Ratatouille was the 15th most expensive place to live. And when I did this research, when this was published, Paris was tied with 2 other cities for the most expensive place to live. So this is when he meets Linguini, who kind of serves as a parallel to Remy's conflicts. He also grew up and has very little and is forced into the background to survive in this upper class society. And so in order for these 2 characters to kind of succeed in this capitalist society, they have to work together. Now, another character in Ratatouille is Skinner, and he's the short little man who tries to steal everything. But not actually, because stealing's bad.
I'm Haley and I approve that message.
I also agree with that.
I don't.
Okay,
Sam!
thank you, Sam. We'll get to that.
We will. We'll get to that in a second. Continue.
So Skinner is a perfect example of a capitalist who exploits creativity and the poor to make more money. And he uses Gusteau's passion and creativity to create cheap knockoffs that he can sell. And that's what he cares about, which makes him a narrative foil to Remy Linguini.
I just quickly wanted to mention that the way that Judy and Nick succeed is also once they work together.
Yeah.
And that's like power of friendship.
Friendship is magic!
Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde work together to progress in their society.
Thank you. That is a fantastic point. I love that. Thank you. So the success of people like Skinner relies on their ability to keep people like Linguini and Remy out of power, like he does when he keeps Linguini's claim.
Linguini!
When he keeps Boy's claim to Gusteau's legacy secret. So Ratatouille opens a discussion of allyship when Colette turns back to help Remy and Linguini, probably partly because she's in love with Linguini or whatever, but also because she is reminded of where she came from and how hard she had to work as a woman to get to where she is. And this is how the main characters achieve their goals, both through Linguini's bloodline, which is pure luck, and the help of people who empathize with their situation. So another ally in the story is the food critic, Igor. He has a complex story, and it seems as though at first he will be a major antagonist for Rat Boy and Pasta Boy. We cannot say for sure that he came from poverty, but he did come from rural rural
Rural France.
And the association with ratatouille as a peasant dish suggests that he wasn't completely well off. And peasant dish, by the way, is a quote from the movie. I'm not just calling it a peasant dish. At the end of the film, it's implied that because of this appeal to Ego's past, he became a small business investor and invested in Remy's Bistro. Ratatouille as a film does not want you to steal food, ever. Even though Remy and his family needed the food that they stole, they got punished. Gusto's ghost, aka Ghosto, tells Remy the film
The
film frames stealing food as always morally wrong when due to factors such as the cycle of poverty, many people are forced to steal to survive. So it's important to note, however, that Gusto's ghost is a manifestation of Remy's consciousness. He represents Remy's internal conflicts, and Remy believes that he shouldn't steal because he wants to reject his family's influence and the stereotypes associated with who he is, which is what I was saying earlier about Nick's stereotypes. He has moralized the issue of stealing out of a dislike for his father. So, comparing this to something like Aladdin doesn't fault what they call street rats for stealing. They gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat. Aladdin only steals because he has to. Compared to the black and white stance of Ratatouille, where you are either moral or you are a thief, the cultural takeaway from the film appears to be a lot closer to that of Aladdin's message than Ratatouille's, that stealing is okay when it is absolutely necessary. You ready?
Yeah,
I was
I'm
gonna say, where
ready.
did Aladdin come from? But I realised it was trying to segue into that.
Yeah.
I was-
1 second. Okay, I've just got a bunch of quotes.
I know, I remember.
But,
And then we can
Doing
discuss
this
them.
English style.
yeah, but if you've ever watched Aladdin, he steals, and then the big genie comes and is like, "Do you have any wishes?" And he's like, "I want to be prince."
Why?
Because they have money and because he wants to marry Jasmine, and he can't marry her because he can't marry her right now because he's poor and she's rich, and that's not allowed. It's not allowed.
Ew.
Anyway, but at the end of the movie they do because she becomes Sultan. So, around the start of the film, this is I hate being in silence. Okay, Aladdin says.
You heard it here, folks.
Stop.
Aladdin says.
Okay.
I'm actually confiscating.
Okay. Aladdin says to his monkey Abu, he says, "Someday, Abu, things are gonna change. We'll be rich, live in a palace, and never have any problems at all." I like the way it's written because it looks like it comes from the Bible.
Proverb 101.
Aladdin 12:21. Okay, so this statement raises many issues. His claim equates wealth with not having problems in life, but this isn't the case. In fact, there are several articles. What? Okay. In fact, several articles outline a new set of problems rich people encounter after acquiring their fortunes. I can't tell you those articles, but though we can't completely blame Aladdin for being blind to these issues, as people don't realize issues they aren't forced to face, and in this case, he's never faced it because he's never been rich. So, um, sorry, I'm reading the okay. Later in the movie, he says, "I wonder what it would be like to live there." He's talking about the palace, and I think he's talking to Jasmine, but I can't remember. And he says he wants to have servants and valets. I think I don't know how to say that word.
Yeah, valets.
Okay. But Jasmine replies and says that the palace isn't all that it seems, and she feels trapped. Why is Sambo's phone back?
Magic.
He's the genie.
He wished for it.
In this scene, Disney defies the idea that socioeconomic status brings personal satisfaction, which is a drastic contrast from other scenes in the film. Another quote is after Jasmine leaves, he realizes that she's a princess, and he says that he must have sounded so stupid to her, because he believes Jasmine will look down on him due to his class. This isn't true. I don't think he really cares. But throughout the film, they call Aladdin they call Aladdin a street rat. The use of the term street rat. The use of the term street rat alone, many conclusions can be drawn using Marxist lens, apparently. And while the people of the palace are praised and illustrated to have everything at their fingertips, the people of the village are dehumanized to rats simply due to their give me a second. Simply due to their social and economic class. This also hints at worth, because without wealth, Aladdin feels worthless and like disposable. So when Aladdin obtains the magic lamp from the Cave of Wonders in the film, so Aladdin finds himself with the opportunity to make 3 wishes from the genie. When the genie asks Aladdin for his first wish, viewers would most likely predict his wish to be for endless amounts of wealth, or to be rich, which is the same thing. I don't know why it says that twice. This expectation itself speaks on how modern society idolizes wealth, and how having possession of it may affect levels of happiness. The more wealth, the more happiness. But this isn't true, because people with money can be sad too. Oh no, it's all gone. Okay.
I mean, just look at Dixie D'Amelio. Sometimes she doesn't want to be happy.
Yeah.
Don't hold it against her, though.
Yeah, stop holding it against her. It's okay. But he wishes to be prince, which it could be for the money, but it's also so that he can marry Jasmine, because they're in love.
Aww.
And there's a lot of different quotes from songs. In One Jump, he talks about how his emotions are almost like overlooked because he's poor, so nobody really cares about him. And like when he tries to speak to like the police officers and be like, "I'm poor," they're like, "Shut up." A Whole New World also shows how Jasmine's life in wealth is a life in captivity. I love it.
It's so good.
So good. And in the live action Speechless, the song Speechless, it shows that women in rich families weren't able to speak out. Yeah. I don't know how that links to Cinderella, but do you want to talk about Cinderella?
Okay.
They both have monkeys. No.
Animal psychic.
Yeah.
So good.
Also, they both wear blue.
Yeah. Very strong link to capitalism.
Yeah.
Okay. Classic rags to riches, she's poor, her family's rich, the prince she marries is also very rich, being,
Hell yeah.
a prince. Hell yeah.
That's what I need. A rich prince.
Real.
She was rich though. She
Her
came from
family
really-
was rich, but
yeah.
she herself was living in poverty.
Yeah.
She was eating, leftovers, sharing her food with her rat friends, which, by the way, was very lovely of her. Just, putting out there.
Yeah.
Also, she was
Aiden.
doing...
I like what Emily said.
Yeah.
No, Aiden.
It was Aiden.
Wait, oh, yeah.
Aiden was like,
She's capitalist.
she's a
too.
capitalist because she didn't
Yeah.
feed the rats.
Apparently rats eat
Yeah.
2,000 calories a day.
Right, okay. So, the concept of class conflict done by Karl Marx is conveyed throughout this story, it definitely focuses on higher class versus lower class. Well, they're all living in the same house. That's the thing. It's very might be a commentary on how easy it would be to lift everyone up to be the same level, but people just don't, just cause. Which is So what's that? Lady Tremaine, which is Cinderella's evil stepmother, has enslaved Cinderella. Not Cinderella. Lady Tremaine might be perceived as a devil figure, character archetype, because she genuinely just makes Cinderella suffer so much when she literally she could so easily just be like, "Hey, do you want to not sleep in the attic? Do you want actual food?" But she just doesn't. Actually, no, thank you. The young girl is a victim of oppression as she is forced to work countless hours under harsh conditions, and she does not get paid for it. The most she gets is a room in an attic, which the house is like it was her father's, so she kind of has a right to it, but she doesn't get it. It's very not nice. Whilst her family is going to fancy events and has like clothes that Cinderella has to make. The mistreatment Cinderella receives, along with the dependence of her family on her, satisfy the statement that rich people stay rich as long as the poor remain poor. Because low wages, high profit equals more rich, less poor. Well, more for the rich, less for the poor.
That's true.
Thank you. I appreciate the validation.
Yeah.
So valid.
Thank you.
Oh my god, by the time this is out, America's gonna have a new president.
That's
God.
scary. That is. I don't
Let's hope
think-
it's Harris.
Oh, Trump. I was about to say Trump Biden.
Okay, The Ideal of Communism by Karl Marx. I don't know why I said it like that. By Karl Marx. Okay. The ideal of communism, the poor becoming equal to the wealthy, is represented when the fairy godmother transforms Cinderella to fit in with the high class people, bibbity bobbity boo. Now you have a really expensive dress. I agree. Okay, as a result, Cinderella is accepted by society and their ideals as a proper woman. She's a belle of the ball. People love her. The prince is like, oh my gosh, she wears that. So this is love. That's the summary of Cinderella for you. So, in conclusion, Cinderella goes from poverty-stricken in a capitalist society to ultimately being an advocate for a revolution and communism. So she's a communist icon.
Speaking of, the book Cinderella is Dead?
I've read it.
I liked it, but I think the pacing was a bit off.
Yeah, like it had a really interesting concept, but like it was. I don't think the execution was.
Yeah.
It could have been better.
Yeah.
You know how in the original Cinderella, the sisters had to cut off parts of their feet to
Oh,
fit
yeah.
into the shoe.
Yeah.
I think that could be representative of something, no?
I mean,
Women change themselves for men.
Yeah.
Greece.
should we get me off when you said that?
I changed myself.
Actually, no, it wouldn't be, because it was meant to show how they were not
Sorry,
perfect, but
such
tried to
fuck.
make themselves that way because their mother was. Yeah, ignore me.
Yeah, but the thing is with the ugly stepsisters, I know it was really weird because those are the only like upper class people apart from the prince we meet,
Yeah.
and they're ugly, they're bad at singing. I get that. Oh, like they're ugly, they're bad at singing. Like their feet are so big. Which what have you got against people with big feet? Okay. In conclusion, how do we think Disney Pixar does how do you think they do on like representing class divide and like their moral messages? Because in Ratatouille, it's a bit iffy.
Yeah. I think overall it is a bit iffy, but it's more how people take it than how
Yeah.
it's actually presented. Like, obviously, in Cinderella, it probably wasn't designed to be
Communist.
communist, especially because it's Disney and Disney's.
And it was like originally
Exclusive.
Brothers Grimm, so
Yeah. So it's more how people kind of read the film. So, as I said earlier, the cultural takeaway from Ratatouille is more similar to what Aladdin's message is than to what Ratatouille's message actually was.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
I think I don't know. A lot of the Disney movies, it's just like they're poor at the start, and then oh wow, something
Rags to
Americans are
riches.
rich, and it's like
Yeah.
it does like it kind of creates that idea in like children's minds that like oh I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like I'll be rich one day. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. When I decided to watch Zootopia again for this, I was actually like pleasantly surprised.
I think you like Zootopia.
Yeah, the dog reason.
I'm so sorry.
I was actually pleasantly
just wanna
surprised
say-
because although you could argue that some things maybe could have been handled better, if considering it as media for kids to learn about maybe not judging others, I'd argue that it does its job quite well.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right.
And nothing is without flaw, so.
All right. Thanks so much for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments.
This has been
Bye.
whatever group.
This has been the Convex Group
Convex
Without Sam.
without Sam, yeah.
For part
Well, he was there for part of it. You know when he was there.
Okay, tune in next week. We're talking about
What are we talking about?
Something.
Something.
Well, we haven't decided it.
No.
Your group.
It's a surprise!
I'll check. Okay. Wait, it's an announcement. Okay. We are talking about growing up as a student under capitalism.
Oh yeah.
You get 2 capitalism episodes in a row. Lucky you.
Amazing.
Be glad I didn't change it to 3 in a row because we could have had 3 in a row.
Yeah, the capitalist podcast.
Right, cool, bye.
Mwah.
Glenn died. I didn't realise that he had died.
Who
Die!
Glenn.
Right,
It starts the movie by saying, I have died. However, this story's not about me, it's about Rapunzel. And I was like, wait, what? He died?
He's died? Wait, what? He's not dead.
No, I'll go back.
Watching
I met the mayor of London once. Sorry.
I met the mayor.
Was he nice?
It's a mayor of
I don't
London.
remember.
Good for you guys. He wasn't a lion, but you know who was? Right, so
I've never met the man.
Oh, well done.
the mayor of Zootopia was Zootropolis. I told you that clue wasn't its last lifeline.
It must be a ghost. The ghost of Chipo. The ghost of Sinji Chan.
They turned him into glue. Oh my god, and there's a cow in the front.
Should it be a horse?
He's like a buffalo thing.
I mean,
No, he's not. He's a man. Stingy Jack. Leave him alone.
You got cheap.
For a man.
Turn Sam into glue.
just salmon.
Into a buffalo? Crazy.
No.
Continue.
God, you don't know about the special rat clam?
You watched the movie before this, so
It is the most well-known fact in nature.
The success of people like Skinner relies on their ability to keep people like Linguini
Okay, but
popular today.
Oh, I thought those were men. I'm so disappointed.
Made a rumor that he was on Ozempic and dating Jenna Ortega, apparently.
He also made a rumor that he was getting sued by Disney.
And that he was dead.
Maybe I have heard of him.
Just one more shot. Just one more shot, guys.
Do you mean like one more shot? So I'm not making myself like one more shot. One more shot. Okay, shut up.
I don't know how he found it, actually. I think someone...
I don't want to see his search history.
It's mostly Minecraft.
I know.
Yeah. We can see it. We can... Okay.
Thank goodness he was only watching the Minecraft video.
Okay, a bit of context.
It's just glass.
A bit of context is that Sam was using the Societal Lens YouTube channel to look at Minecraft building tutorials.
Chapel Road. Like all the videos. It's Chapel
Multiple
Road.
like music videos on there.
To be fair, the glass rod was years ago. We're gonna end up on some kind of list, but you're out here tasting Aladdin and touching feet.